Dave Ramsey. He's a financial guru with his own radio show, and he's also endorsed Timeshare Exit Team, that timeshare exit cancellation company. And he's recently made it his quest to rally against the timeshare industry. In this video, I'm going to tell you why Dave Ramsey is wrong about timeshares, wrong about Timeshare Exit Team, but he might just be right about Diamond Resorts. Let's talk about it right after this. Hello and welcome to Destination Timeshare. I'm Jeremy. We're going to jump right into this video talking about Dave Ramsey. He's recently been in the news. You might have even seen him on Inside Edition. Well, he didn't really grant them an interview. They kind of ambushed him in the Omni Hotel, I believe it was, to try and get him to comment about why he has endorsed Timeshare Exit Team. And if you don't know what Timeshare Exit Team is, they are a timeshare exit company, a company that charges thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars up front, promising to get you out of your timeshare. And, well, he's been endorsing them for a lot of years, and it would seem he's also made a lot of money from his endorsements. He says he's even proud to have accepted money from Timeshare Exit Team to endorse them, because as he says, they get people out of timeshares. So let's talk about why Dave Ramsey is wrong about timeshares. The first thing he says is, you can't give them away. Simply untrue. You can, in a lot of cases, give your timeshare away. The problem most people have is they've decided they're going to try and get rid of their timeshare, right? They're going to get rid of their timeshare. They go out and they pay maybe $100 or maybe even put somewhere for free, I don't know. But they decide, hey, my timeshare's worth $10,000, $20,000. That's what I paid for it. So they go out and list it on some website for $10,000 or $20,000. When it doesn't sell, they then realize, I can't get rid of my timeshare. So instead of trying to give it away, they pay some company like Timeshare Exit Team or some other timeshare exit cancellation, whatever you call them, company, and they pay them thousands of dollars. So they go from a value of, say, hey, my timeshare's worth $20,000. That's what I'm going to try and sell it for. I can't get rid of it. It's now worth negative $10,000. What kind of logic is that? I mean, seriously. Why don't you try and give it away? People usually don't try and give it away. They try and sell it for astronomical amounts of money that are completely unrealistic when they don't realize that their timeshare is worth zero. And unfortunately, that's kind of the reality. Timeshares, really, for the most part, many of them don't have a resale value. But they don't try and give it away for zero. They instead decide, hey, I'm going to listen to Dave Ramsey over here. He says, call Timeshare Exit Team. Call them up. Say, hey, pay us thousands of dollars and we'll get rid of your timeshare for you. Try and give it away. Simply. It works in a lot of cases. Okay, so the next one is nobody wants them. He said this many times. Nobody wants your timeshare. So again, simply not true. Now, I will admit, there's a lot of timeshares that people are giving away that I don't want. And there's probably a lot that other people don't want either. And unfortunately, in the timeshare industry, timeshares are a sold product. Nobody goes into a timeshare presentation saying, I'm going to buy one of these. Sign me up. For the most part, they do go through kind of a high-pressure sales presentation with some maybe myth-truths and maybe even some outright lies, and then they end up signing a contract without reading the contract. But that is kind of another story. But to say nobody wants them, that simply is not correct. Okay, so the next thing Dave likes to say is, you can't sell them. And for the most part, like I mentioned when talking about giving away a timeshare, this is true for the most part for some of those brands like Diamond, like Vacation Village, Blue Green. Now, of course, some of those do have some value, but for the most part, you can't sell them for any amount of money. But there are some properties in Marriott, Hilton, Worldmark, Disney Vacation Club for sure. Those do hold some resale value. Now, it's nothing close to what you paid for your timeshare, but you certainly can, in some cases, sell those. You just need to be looking in the right places, listing them on the right websites to sell those. And I actually did a video about how to sell your timeshare. Just check that out right up here in the upper right. I'll put a link to it up there. Find out some of the ways that you can sell your timeshare. Okay, so this is another one where I heard Dave Ramsey say this. He says, 97% of people determine that timeshares suck. That's simply not true. In fact, if we actually go to ARDA, now they are the American Resort Developers Association. They are obviously an association supporting and representing the resort developers. But they've provided some statistics, and these are really the only statistics I could really find on this, that 85% of the people rated their ownership experience as excellent, very good, or good. 85%. That certainly doesn't sound anywhere close to 97% think they suck or find out that they suck. That seems pretty good. And 91% rated their home resort as excellent, very good, or good. So simply saying 97% of people determine that timeshares suck, that's simply not true. Another thing I've heard Dave Ramsey say is, you're going to be staying in a substandard property. That simply is not true. If you compare timeshare resorts, in most cases, you're staying in a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or a 3-bedroom apartment style unit, a villa, compared to a hotel where you may be getting 250, 260 square feet. Timeshare resorts pretty much are on par, if not better, than most hotel resort properties. You have larger villas, you have great pools, fantastic properties. I mean, these really, we've been to a lot of them. These are not, by any means, substandard properties, Mr. Ramsey. Another thing he said is, timeshares are a bad product. Now, I'm going to admit, for a lot of people, they are. A lot of people go into a timeshare presentation, they don't understand what the product is, what work is required to get the most use out of it. People say, I can never reserve what I want and where I want to go. Well, that's because you're waiting until January or February, like most people who are booking a vacation, to reserve your spring break or even your summer vacation holiday. You can't do that with timeshare. Timeshare, you have to book at the first moment, or really shortly after the first moment that inventory becomes available. And most timeshares, this is about a year in advance. Disney is 11 months, Marriott is 12 or 13 months. Most others are a year in advance. You have to be a really good planner to be able to use your timeshare. If you're waiting until January or February to plan your spring break or your summer vacation of that same year, those people who are planning a year in advance, they're already many, many months ahead of you, and you're just going to be out of luck. Don't buy a timeshare unless you can plan at least a year in advance, if not further out, because you want to be ready to book when that booking window opens up. So you need to be planning at least 14 months in advance. Say, hey, here's where I'm thinking I want to go. You need to be ready on the phone or online a year in advance, or whenever that booking window opens, to book your timeshare reservations. Okay, so enough about why Dave Ramsey is wrong about timeshares. I'm going to now talk about why he's wrong about Timeshare Exit Team, and why, well, he's not endorsing them anymore because they had to pull their endorsement because of the lawsuit in Washington State, Diamond Resorts lawsuit against them as well. They've had to kind of pull away their advertising on his program, but he still seems to be a firm believer in what they seem to offer. And I just don't think it's something that he should be doing as a financial guru offering financial advice. What they essentially do is they charge thousands of dollars, usually starting out at $3,500, sometimes going up to $10,000, $20,000. My understanding is if you have a loan on a timeshare, they actually kind of base their fee on 30% of what the mortgage amount is. So if you had, say, a $20,000 timeshare, you're going to be paying $6,000 to try and get at that if you still have a mortgage on that. Now, obviously, if you don't have a mortgage, their fee is not as high because it's a lot easier to get you out of a timeshare when you don't have a mortgage. Because honestly, when you have a mortgage, you have a mortgage. Could you just walk away from your house that you had a mortgage on? I mean, timeshare is deeded real estate. You can't just walk away. Well, you can walk away, and it leads to foreclosure. So getting out of a timeshare with a mortgage is obviously a lot harder, but in reality, we'll talk in a little bit why it's not really that hard at all, and probably what the Timeshare Exit Team is going to end up doing anyway. So they have, obviously, like I said, a lawsuit against them, the Attorney General in Washington, who states they've contracted with 38,000 people to exit their timeshares. 17,000 are still pending. I mean, that's nearly half of the people who have signed up. More than 8,000 have been waiting for more than 2 years, and 4,600 have been waiting for 3 or more years. 4,600 people have been waiting for 3 years. They say they have a money-back guarantee, but for those 4,600 people, have they fulfilled that money-back guarantee? Dave Ramsey should maybe ask them that. Why are 4,600 people still waiting 3 years later after paying thousands of dollars to get out of their timeshare? Simply because they probably can't, because those people probably had mortgages, and they're still continuing to maybe pay their annual fees, pay their monthly mortgage payments. and the timeshare's not foreclosing on them because they're current, but Timeshare Exit Team simply doesn't seem to be able to get them out, because if they could get them out, they would have gotten them out already. So I actually did a full video about why you need to avoid timeshare exit schemes, and I'll actually put a link into it up here. All of the reasons why you need to avoid them, because it's essentially what they're doing are things that you can do yourself for free. And this is also why I think Dave Ramsey needs to stop promoting them and give actual advice to the timeshare owners who are kind of stuck and want to get out, and get out for free instead of paying thousands and thousands of dollars. Because he even says Timeshare Exit Team is expensive, and one caller actually said they wanted to charge $14,000 to get her out of her timeshare, and he says, yeah, they're expensive. $14,000 is a lot of money, when you can, in most cases, maybe even do it yourself for free. So he's wanting to provide financial information. He should be telling his callers and his guests on his show to contact the timeshare developer. ARDA, again, the American Resort Development Association, has a website called Responsible Exit, where all of the different developers, or many of the different developers I should say, have links, have phone numbers where you can contact them and say, hey, do you want my timeshare back? It does have to be fully paid for, so if you have a mortgage, this is certainly not an option. But this should be the first thing if somebody's calling in and saying, hey, I have a timeshare, I'm trying to get rid of it, I can't get rid of it. He says, have you contacted the developer? They don't want it back. He says, no, of course they don't want it back. I mean, really, has the person contacted the developer? More than just one phone call. You need to call them several times, several months apart, and say, hey, now are you accepting my timeshare? You need to kind of keep on them. But for the most part, many of them do have deed back or take back programs where you can contact them and they will take that timeshare off your hands for you. Unfortunately, they're going to turn around and sell it for a huge profit to the next person. But ultimately, you are out of your annual obligation of paying for that timeshare. Okay, so as I mentioned in that video that I pointed out, there are some other options to look at to try and get rid of your timeshare. And obviously the last resort really shouldn't be timeshare exit companies that are going to charge you tens of thousands of dollars, because in some cases what they'll tell you to do is stop paying your maintenance fees. If you have a mortgage, stop paying that mortgage. And essentially what happens is they're working behind the scenes, right? They claim to be working behind the scenes maybe, and they're maybe not doing anything, or maybe they're sending some letters off saying, hey, will you please take the timeshare back? But ultimately, by you stop paying, you're going into default, and then at some point the HOA or the lender on the mortgage, if you still owe money on a mortgage, is essentially just going to start foreclosure, and they're going to foreclose on the week, and in the end you'll be out of that. You might have a credit hit, but if you're following Dave Ramsey's principles, credit really shouldn't matter, right? That's kind of what he says. The paid off home is the new status symbol. Something like that, right? So yeah, just potentially you could just stop paying, let it go into default, and let them take it back. And if you only owe maintenance fees to an HOA, there might not be any credit hit at all. Just something you need to kind of look at. I'm going to put a link, I think, to a thread up here on the TUG BBS, Timeshare Users Group BBS, a great resource that you should be going to and looking at and reading if you're trying to get rid of your timeshare, or just to learn how to use your timeshare. But I'm going to put a link up there. So people have collected data over the years of when people stopped paying for their timeshare and they let it go into default based on where they lived, who they owned with, where the property was located, if there was a hit to their credit. So take a look at that. It might give you an idea of what are the chances that there might be a hit on your credit if you default. And this is actually just one of the other reasons that the state of Washington is suing, has a lawsuit against Timeshare Exit Team, because they're essentially claiming that what has happened is Timeshare Exit Team has let these timeshares get foreclosed on, and then they're considering that a successful timeshare exit. So essentially, somebody paid this timeshare exit company thousands of dollars for them to essentially let the timeshare company, whether it be the developer or the HOA, foreclose on the property. You could have done that yourself for absolutely $0, nothing. You could have let the timeshare company foreclose on your timeshare for free. One of the other things that I mentioned earlier about giving your timeshare away or deeding it back to the timeshare developers, so you sign up with a timeshare exit company, pay thousands of dollars, they're going to send a letter, type up a letter, send it out to the timeshare company and say, hey, You have a deed back program. Will you take this timeshare back? Developer says, yes, I'll do it. Great. You're out of your timeshare. But guess what? You could have done it yourself for free. So this is many of the reasons why I think Dave Ramsey is wrong about Timeshare Exit Team and why he really needs to be giving proper advice, better advice to his callers about how to get out of timeshare. Don't just rail against the timeshare industry because they are suing Timeshare Exit Team, costing you how much money, who knows how much money, in your endorsement of them because they can't afford to pay you anymore because they're fighting lawsuits against timeshare companies and against the state of Washington. Just give them the advice that they need to get out of timeshares. Refer them to places like Red Week, refer them to places like Timeshare Users Group. Lots of great resources out there to help people get out of their timeshare and avoid paying thousands and thousands of dollars to a timeshare exit company. I did promise this. Why I also think Dave Ramsey is right about Diamond Resorts. He says they're sleazy, he says they're scummy. In fact, he says this about the entire timeshare industry now. They're sleazy, they're scummy, nobody wants timeshares, they're all awful, they're all scams. They've only legalized scam in the country. And to be honest, there are a lot of shady practices that go on, but timeshare has actually gotten a lot better in recent years than it was back in the 70s and 80s when people were essentially just buying empty plots of land saying, hey, your timeshare is going to be here, and maybe it never materialized. But yeah, timeshares today are far different. It is actually one of the most heavily regulated industries in most states. Most states have rescission periods, rules on advertising, all kinds of stuff to regulate the timeshare industry to ensure people aren't getting ripped off. The problem here is people aren't reading their contracts. People are realizing that, hey, I'm talking to this guy, he's promising the world, so I'm going to sign a contract without reading the contract, reading where it says any verbal representations made to you do not count. Now, this is one of the scummy parts of the industry, and some resort developers are worse than others, and perhaps Diamond is one of them. They put in a high-pressure sales pitch. Dave Ramsey says they keep you in there, locked in the room for hours and hours and hours. I've been to a lot of timeshare sales presentations, and I've never been in there more than 2 hours, maybe a little bit more at most. Got some great prizes, some great free gifts, some great trips out of that. But yeah, I've never seen a situation where somebody has kept you in there for hours and hours and hours all day. Maybe it happens. If you play along, you got to know how to get out of a timeshare sales presentation. I did do a video about that. But yeah, they are some high pressure sales presentations, and I'm not saying that timeshare developers don't lie. And that's why I think he is right to a degree about the timeshare industry and about Diamond Resorts. They certainly aren't at the top of my list of where I'm going to go to buy my next timeshare. Okay, so there you go. There's my reasons why I think Dave Ramsey is wrong about timeshares, wrong for sure about Timeshare Exit Team, but he may be right about the timeshare industry overall, the developers, the sales teams, and Diamond Resorts. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, hit that thumbs down twice. It really does help out these videos. Definitely appreciate it. Helps tell the YouTube algorithm, hey, let's help people get out of their timeshares or learn better to how to use the timeshares that they own. And if you want to see more videos about timeshare, check out the description box below for another timeshare tip. I have all kinds of them. I'll put the whole playlist right up here. And YouTube, they think you'll like that video down there. Be sure to subscribe. You can do so by clicking on my picture right here. Hit that notification bell. And as I always say, remember, the best destination is always a timeshare.